Hey guys, what's up? My name is Elizabeth and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in this video, we're going to be talking about how do we show love. So last video we asked what love is, and we looked at 1 Corinthians 13:4-8. And in this video, we're going to be looking at other passages where it talks about how do we display love. So now that we know what love is, we need to understand how do we display it? How do we give it to other people? We know that love is sacrificial. We know that love doesn't rejoice in the truth. We know that love is patient, is kind, is long-suffering. It does not envy. It is satisfied. It bears all things, hopes all things, believes all things. We know that love is the greatest gift because if we don't do anything without the lens of love and the filter of love, it is nothing. So with that being said, let's just jump right in and get started. When we want to understand how to show love, we need to first look at who showed us love first, because someone has to show love first, right? Well, God did that for us. God showed us how to love. In 1 John 4-9, it says, "In this, the love of God was made manifest among us, that God sent his only Son into the world so that we might live through him." So God showed us love first. Love is also about giving up our wants and desires. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday, but here's a verse that I wanted to talk about a little bit here, and that is Ephesians 5:25. And I think oftentimes when we talk about women's roles in the home and church, we often neglect this part when we're going over that, because we're just all about, wives submit to your husband sometimes, and we forget about the other part. But listen to this. It says this: "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." My point is that Christ showed us what love is by giving up his own life, and now he is calling husbands to do the same for their wife. Now, I'm not going to get in the nitty-gritty about wives submit to your husband, husbands love your wife in this video. I might in March, when it talks about Women's History Month or Women's Month or something like that, we're going to be talking about complementarians and stuff like that. But for this purpose, I just want to make mention that Christ showed us love by giving himself up for us. Christ also told us that we show love by keeping his commandments. It says in John 14:15, "If you love me, you will keep my commandments." So that is pretty much what love, that's the beginning of love. First, we need to understand that God showed us love. In Romans 5:8, it says, "But God demonstrated his own love towards us, even that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." So God was the first one who showed us love. In another verse, it's talking about, "In this is love, not that we love God, but that he loved us and sent his Son to be the propitiation for our sins." Pretty much the point is that we knew nothing about love until God decided to show his love towards us. And he did this by sending his Son to sacrifice his own self. And that is why love is all about sacrifice. It's literally about dying to yourself. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. Inwardly, dying to yourself daily to serve someone else. So God gave us two greatest commandments, and Jesus was asked, what's the greatest commandment? And he told us two. And it all has to stem back with love. The first one is to love God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength. That's pretty much to love God with every aspect of our being. And this type of love ought to be above everything else. Oftentimes we might think about loving someone else. We talk about loving your parents, or, if you're in a relationship, you might love that person. But even in those instances, we need to love God above that person. God should be our first and foremost love. And then through our love for God, then we love others. Okay? Now, as I said before, we can't love on our own. It's only through God do we love. So God gives us the strength to love. Then we love God back. And then through that love, we love others. Now, there's a verse in the Bible where it says, love others as yourself. It's literally the golden rule. In Matthew chapter 7, verse, I believe, 10. And some people use this as a defense for self-love. Now, if you haven't lived long in this society, self-love, let me just tell you, is very popular. And it has at times a slight hand into self-love. You know, a lot of times they talk about do what feels good to you, whatever makes you happy. That's self-love. Now, some people might argue, well, Lizzie, I'm not very big into self-love. I don't really love myself. Actually, I despise myself. Well, let me ask you this. How many times do you stand there, you know, maybe looking in the mirror, self-loathing to yourself about how much you wish you could look, I guess, in your mind, prettier, or you made a mistake? How many times do you sit there having your own little pity party? Well, in that way, you're loving yourself. You're thinking about yourself above everybody else. You're thinking about your problems above everyone else. And that is self-love, whether you realize it or not. That is self-love. And I think when we think about that, it really opens our eyes to how much we really love ourselves. So, some people say, okay, we need to love ourselves before we can love others. Now, this is not true. We don't need to love ourselves before we love others. Actually, we need to love others before ourselves. But Lizzie, you might ask, it says to love others just as we love ourselves. Okay, let me explain here. We use all our energy that we would use to love ourselves, even if that energy is only self-pity, we use that to love others. Okay? The focus that we have, even if it's the focus of self-pity, we focus on others. That's what the verse is talking about. I want to talk about a tricky thing, and that is the phrase, love is love. Yeah, you probably have heard that before. And they use that oftentimes is, love is love, because they don't want people told that they are wrong. So it's telling someone that they're wrong, love. Now you might look at it and go, well, last week we talked about how love does not keep the record of wrong, or does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices, what did it say? In the truth. It says love rejoices in the truth. See, love is all about truth. Love isn't about thought stuff. It doesn't dance around happy about thoughts and, have a party with all the people who are wrong. No. It doesn't mock the people who are wrong. It doesn't rejoice that they are wrong. Nor does it join the people who are wrong. But rather, it stands on the side of truth. And I'm not going to get into the aspect of absolute truths versus people who think truth is whatever you want to make it. I think I did a little video about that, about Christian worldview versus other worldviews. I'll probably have like a card up here that you can go find it. I never know which side it's going to appear. I know I look at it and I never remember. So just click one over here, okay? So for love rejoices in the truth. What we want, so here's the truth of it. Whether we want it or not, we can love by protecting others. See, as humans, we want to be protected. Whether we realize it or not, we want to be protected. We protect ourselves. Sometimes that's why people don't love others, because we're trying to protect ourselves from being hurt. And I know from my personal experience, that's sometimes why, for me, it's hard to love other people. It's hard for me to get close to other people. Because in a way, I'm being selfish. I'm choosing to love myself. I'm choosing to protect myself. And all that energy I should be using to love other people. Okay? So keep the idea of protecting others and not living in wrongdoing. Because living in wrong, sinful ways is dangerous. And to protect those people by telling them that they're wrong, by telling them the truth, so that they don't get hurt by living in wrongdoing, by living in sin. So lastly, how do we actually use this in Real world situations. Well, I think the first thing is just look out for the interest of others. I know that is so broad, but just look out for the interest of others. Look out to see what their favorite food is. And if you're going to go out to eat with that person, think about going out to eat where they would like to go out to eat. If it's activities, think about things that they would like to do. If you see a need that needs to be done, think about doing those needs. But you need to do this out of love. You need to do this out of heart attitude that you're here willing to personally sacrifice your time. Not because you have to, but because you get to. Okay? Another thing, I think one way that we can love others is just encourage others in the faith. This is a great way to show our love for others. We can ask them, what can I pray for you? Or you know that person's struggling with something. You can say, I'll pray for you for that. Or you can just check in and say, hey, how are you doing ultimately? How's your walk with your faith? Another thing is correcting others. I know oftentimes I get told, oh, I can see a little pride creeping up there, and in that way, it's out of love. It's correcting me to know, okay, I need to not be so prideful. I need to humble myself down, realize I'm not as important as I think. Actually, I'm really not. I'm literally from the dust of the ground. I'm nothing but dirt, really. And I think the last thing that is really hard is to love the unlovable. Oftentimes it's easy to love those people who are kind back to us, but love isn't about getting things back. Love is about giving even when there's nothing in return. And if there is something in return, maybe that's even hate. Maybe that's anger. And in that, we need to still love. Loving yourself is so much easier. I remember opening the door one day thinking, I think someone was coming, and I opened the door and I was just thinking to myself, loving myself is so much easier. Being selfish is so easy. But loving others, oh, that's a whole different level. See, the world wants to tell us that love is just an emotion. Love is a chemistry feeling that we get, and love fades away. But biblically, God's type of love doesn't fade away. It lasts forever. It's more than a chemistry feeling. It's a choice one makes to sacrifice their life every single day to constantly give themselves for others. Now, I do want to talk about one last bit. Some people talk about, well, if we need to constantly give ourselves to others, does that mean our personal time is selfish? I mean, what about taking a shower? What about a mother with 3 kids? Is it selfish for her to go take a shower? No. Because when we do take those times for ourselves, it is not for us, but for a time that we can refuel ourselves so that we can give ourselves more. It's kind of like a car. A car can only give so much until it runs out of oil. But when you put more oil in it, it can keep giving more. Okay? So we gotta think about it in that way. When we do spend time for ourselves, whether that's exercising, whether that's eating healthy, those aren't selfish in of itself. It only becomes selfish when we put that above other people's needs. But if we use eating healthy, if we use exercise, if we use hygiene to keep ourselves physically well, if we use that time to pray, use that time for Bible reading, quiet time with the Lord, to refuel ourselves so that with the heart intention to be able to then use that fuel to go serve, to go love, to go sacrifice more for other people, then I do not call that selfishness. Look, my point is, when it comes to self-love, we gotta look at the heart intention. Is the heart intention to go focus on me, or is the heart intention is to prepare myself to go serve others? So with that being said, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, press that bell button, get notifications so you never miss another video again. And I think that's pretty much it. So, God bless you, and I'll see you next time.